Welcome back to Neville Goddard Insights. Today I want to give you two words. Only two. But when you say them quietly, inside yourself, not to the room, not to a friend, not even to your own reflection, something in reality starts to shift. Doors you didn't expect open. Timing that seemed stuck suddenly moves. What felt out of reach begins to feel close. Here is the strange part. These two words only work if you keep them to yourself. The instant you say them out loud to someone who doesn't think this way, some of their power drains out of them. Doubt slips in through the crack. Reason takes the wheel. And the thing you were growing gets pulled out before it can root. Real creation was never about trying harder. It's about who you decide you already are. It's about assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled before any evidence shows up to back it. These two words are the door into that version of you, the one who isn't waiting for the outcome because they're already living inside it. You might think you clicked on this video for a few tips. You didn't. You're here to change on the inside, not to learn a trick. This isn't a technique you perform once and forget. It's a way of aligning yourself, and that alignment starts with something said quietly, firmly, and without apology, inside your own mind. So don't just watch this. Let it land in you. Feel what's underneath it. By the time this ends, you won't just know the two words, you'll know why they carry weight, how to plant them into your daily life, and what to do once your circumstances begin rearranging themselves around you. Keep watching. Most of us were raised to think speech is just a way to describe things, to report what's already happening. I want to offer you something older than that, something the ancient world understood, and the modern mind mostly lost. Words aren't containers for what already exists. They're the womb your world gets born from. They're the quiet tools you've been using all along to shape your life, whether you realized it or not. You think you're the one speaking words, but really, they're speaking you into being. Every sentence you repeat, every phrase that slips out of you unnoticed, every thought you let run on autopilot, none of it disappears into thin air. Each one is a kind of instruction sent straight into the workshop of creation. You won't always see the result right away, but every word said in full belief eventually comes back to you, not as an echo, but as something solid, a person, a chance, a wall, or an opening. That's the real secret. It was never about what you asked the universe for. It's about what you kept declaring, what you quietly accepted as already true. Now pay close attention, because this is the turning point. When I say declare, I don't mean shouting it from a stage. I mean a settled, private certainty, a voice inside you that isn't hoping reality will change, but already sees it as finished. The real tragedy is that most people spend their lives describing their circumstances, instead of creating new ones. They say, I'm broke, I'm exhausted, nothing ever goes my way, nobody hears me. They believe they're just stating facts, but they're actually issuing orders. These aren't neutral observations. They're commands, and the unseen only answers to one thing: belief wrapped in language. Sit with that for a moment. You're always using this creative force, whether you mean to or not. The only real choice is whether you direct it on purpose or let it run without you. The language of creation was never about clever phrasing. It's about identity. The moment you say I am, you're calling on the strongest phrase available to you, defining the invisible material you're made of. I am isn't followed by a fact, it's followed by a future. Say it with dread, and dread follows you around. Say it with certainty, and circumstances start rearranging to match. Say it soaked in love, and love finds its way to your door. Yet most people say I am, and finish the sentence with lack, with limitation, not because they want to, but because that's what they were taught was humble. We were told speaking boldly about ourselves is arrogant, but what gets labeled arrogance is really just clarity. The unseen doesn't care about volume, it responds to how certain you are underneath the words. Picture someone in front of a mirror saying, I am successful, while some quieter part of them whispers, not really. Which one wins? The whisper, every time, because creation responds to how fully you've agreed to something inside. not how loud you say it. That's why affirming isn't enough on its own. You have to assume the identity. Wear it like skin. Live inside it as though it's already settled. Think from the finished result, not toward it. Speak like someone who already has it, not someone still hoping for it. This is where most people get stuck. They say I am wealthy, then check their bank balance for proof. But creation isn't built on proof, it produces the proof. Your words don't wait on the world to respond. The world responds to your words. So ask yourself, what are you saying when nobody's around to hear it? That whisper is the frequency you're actually living on. Your outside life is a printout of your private self-talk. And now you understand. You'll stop saying this is just how things are, and start saying this is how I've chosen to imagine them. You'll say I am able, and ability will meet you halfway. You'll say I am whole, and healing will start. Not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped talking against it. But here's the part almost nobody warns you about. Once you start declaring this way, you'll feel the urge to tell someone, to prove your shift is real. Resist it completely. What's sacred has to stay hidden, not because it's weak, but because it hasn't taken shape yet. And shape forms best in silence. You don't dig up a seed every day to check on its roots. You trust the dark soil to do its quiet work. The same goes for your declaration. Seal it inside yourself like a private vow. Speak it inwardly, consistently, and share it with no one. Not because people are unkind, but because they live by the logic of what's already visible, while you're speaking from what hasn't appeared yet. The moment you tell someone your unformed desire, they filter it through their own doubts and hand it back to you smaller. Their words might not sound harsh, they might sound like concern, but every bit of doubt they offer becomes a delay you didn't need. You don't need anyone's approval for an inner truth. That need is the trap itself. So keep it quiet. Protect it the way a mother shields a child still forming. Not with explanations, but with steady feeling and stillness. And understand this too. Who you believe yourself to be decides everything else. You don't get what you want. You get what you are. If you say I am and follow it with something that mirrors your current struggle instead of your intended strength, you're reinforcing the present with full conviction instead of building the future. You can't hope for wealth while identifying as someone who's always short. And you can't want love while believing you're unlovable. That split creates a quiet, exhausting war inside you. So if you want to become anything at all, first become that version of yourself in thought, in feeling, and in the words you allow yourself when no one else is listening. Now comes the actual work. Not hustling harder on the outside, but recalibrating who you are on the inside, every single day. Ask yourself honestly, who am I being today? Do my thoughts match the future I keep saying I want? Do my habits actually line up with the person I claim to be? It's sobering, because most people want the harvest without ever touching the roots. But reality doesn't bend that way. Think of your identity like a thermostat. You can spike in behavior, chase a new goal, announce a bold dream, but if the internal setting hasn't actually changed, you'll drift right back to wherever it was set. It's almost automatic. That's why so many lottery winners end up broke again within a few years. That's why people who suddenly find love often quietly sabotage it, because the identity underneath never matched the blessing on top. So the blessing gets rejected, whether they meant to or not. So what's the fix? You change the setting itself. You raise the internal standard. You stop saying I'll become that someday and start saying that's already who I am. And when you say it, not as performance but as something you mean in your bones, it starts becoming real. Let me be blunt. This kind of identity shift is not comfortable. At first it feels like lying to yourself, foreign, because you've spent years rehearsing a smaller version of who you are. Still, that's no reason to stay small. You weren't put here to survive your own story. You're here to rewrite it. And that rewrite starts with 2 words that decide your entire arc before the world ever sees how it ends. I am. Not I wish, not I might, not I hope someday. I am. That's where personal responsibility starts, and where real power gets born. And here's the strange part. Once you start saying, I am from real conviction, embodying a new identity, instead of begging for a new outcome, something subtle but massive begins to happen. The world starts arranging itself around your assumption, and your imagination becomes the soil your future grows from. That's not a nice metaphor. It's just how it works. You might think imagination belongs to children, artists, or dreamers, but that's dangerously wrong. Every person alive is imagining something constantly, most of the time without any awareness. They're imagining rejection before it happens, failure before they've started, conflict before a word is spoken. And because of that, their life ends up mirroring the worst-case scenes they've done, rehearsed 1,000 times in their own head. Imagination isn't optional, and it isn't a toy. It's the womb your experience is born from. Keep imagining from the place of who you used to be, and you'll stay that person no matter how many affirmations you recite. So this becomes the real task. Take command of what you imagine. This is where discipline meets vision. Used on purpose, imagination stops being an escape and becomes your sharpest tool for embodiment, for actually becoming. So look closely. If you want I am to actually take root in the subconscious and bear fruit, saying it isn't enough, you have to see it and feel it, not as a distant possibility, but as a present fact. Your imagination has to operate from the place you want to be, not toward it. That's the entire difference. Most people imagine forward. They look at their current situation, at the mountain still ahead, and say, someday I'll get there. But that mindset locks them inside the very reality they're trying to escape. Because as long as something stays in the future tense, it isn't believed in the present. And what isn't believed now has no power to show up. So what's the alternative? You imagine backwards. You place yourself, mentally, already in the fulfilled state, and look back at your current moment from that finished place, with the calm of someone who's already arrived. You say, of course this happened. I've lived it 100 times already in my mind. And something in you shifts. The fear evaporates. The doubt loses its voice, because you've made the future familiar, and what's familiar stops being frightening. This isn't fantasy, it's responsible creation. The subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's vividly imagined. Feed it an image long enough, especially one loaded with real emotion and repeated often, and it starts organizing your behavior, consciously and unconsciously, to make that image true. And here's the catch. This only works with consistency, with the discipline to stop returning to the version of you that doubts, that hesitates, that flinches. You have to live inside the scene you've imagined day after day, no matter what your 5 senses are reporting. That's the actual price of transformation, because resistance will show up. You'll feel the pull to check the mirror, to look at the numbers, to ask someone for reassurance. But the mirror can only show your previous state of consciousness, never the one you've just stepped into. The world is slow to catch up, but it always does. The real question is whether you'll hold the vision long enough for it to catch you. Fold too early, abandon the imagined scene just because the outer world hasn't caught up yet. And you'll train your own mind to believe only the visible counts as real, cutting the link between imagination and manifestation. But stay with it. Keep living the inner scene long enough for the world to rewrite its script, and you'll witness a shift so complete it almost looks like coincidence or fate. It isn't either one. It's structure, it's cause and effect, the direct result of a disciplined inner vision held on purpose. That's the actual power of imagination, not fantasy, but rehearsal, and your life, whether you like it or not, is the performance. Once you've rehearsed that inner vision with enough precision, once imagination becomes the place you actually live, rather than somewhere you visit when the outer world gets too loud, something remarkable starts happening. Your perception shifts. You stop reacting to life like you're trapped inside it, and start responding like you've stepped outside of it. In that space, you experience something most people never even suspect is possible. An actual shift in the dimension of identity you're occupying. Not just a better thought or a nicer habit. And it can feel unsettling, because moving from who you were into who you'd fade means leaving behind everything that felt solid, even if it was miserable. That's the strange irony of change. People say they want it, yet they cling to familiar misery because it feels safe. But once you step into this new space, not through force, but through repetition, through declaration, through imagining from the finished end, your consciousness starts to take on the texture of the life you've been picturing. You stop trying to achieve the new life and start living inside it. And that's what produces real results. Not magic, structure. And that structure is built on one thing: assumption. Assumption isn't wishful thinking. It's an inner posture, the decision to walk, speak, and act from a state that hasn't shown up yet on your calendar or your bank statement, but already exists in the field of pure potential, a field more real than whatever you're currently experiencing, since today is just a delayed reflection of what you accepted as true yesterday. So the real question becomes, what state are you assuming right now? Not occasionally, not only when you feel inspired, but habitually, reflexively, without even noticing, because that assumption is shaping your future more than any plan you've ever written down. Assume lack, and you'll manifest lack no matter how many chances cross your path. Assume rejection, and you'll read every silence as proof nobody wants you. Assume powerlessness, and you'll talk yourself back into weakness even in your strongest moments. Your assumption is the lens, and the lens decides what you see, how you interpret it, and how you act on it. The better question is, how do I change what I assume about myself and the world? Because you can't undo what you keep assuming to be true. You'll just keep circling back to it, like gravity pulling you home. This is where responsibility enters, and it's a brutal, uncomfortable, freeing kind of responsibility. You're not responsible for everything that's happened to you, but you are responsible for what you assume about yourself afterward. That's the line separating victimhood from authority. That's where real sovereignty starts. So how do you actually assume something new? You practice. You stop waiting for proof. You stop measuring your worth against outside confirmation. You start rehearsing that inner alignment with enough commitment that reality is eventually forced to catch up. You sit quietly with the new version of yourself. You imagine how they talk, how they walk into a room, how they handle conflict, how they respond to doubt, how they spend their time. Then you start living from there, not all at once, but steadily, relentlessly. It will feel uncomfortable, like you're faking it. You'll feel disoriented. That's actually a good sign. It means your old identity is being shaken loose. That's the necessary mess before the rebuild. And if you can hold that assumption long enough, despite the evidence saying otherwise, despite the discomfort, despite the pull to slide back, you'll eventually feel it settle inside you. You'll stop reaching for a future self and start standing inside it. Because assumption, sustained long enough, becomes identity, and identity, once embodied, reshapes everything around it. And once that identity settles, once the new assumption hardens into quiet certainty, you'll run into a final, often overlooked challenge. It isn't about effort anymore, and it isn't about vision either. It's about protection. You have to guard the seed. You've spent all this time speaking new words, imagining from the finished end, assuming the state of the person you're becoming, and now, like a sprout just breaking through soil, that new identity is fragile. If you're careless, the weeds of old habits and old opinions will choke it out before it ever gets the chance to bear anything. Nobody tells you this part. Everyone's thrilled to plant the seed. Everyone wants the outcome, but very few are willing to stand guard while it's still tender, while there's no bloom yet, no applause, no proof to justify the change happening inside you. And that's exactly where the real test begins. Because right when you're doing everything right, declaring I am, assuming the outcome, seeing yourself clearly, that's precisely when doubt shows up. Not earlier, not while you were buried in chaos. It arrives when you're close, when you're finally aligned, when you've just started walking like the person you claim to be. You'll feel the pull to say something careless. Maybe this isn't working, or what if I was wrong? Those small compromises aren't harmless, they're cracks. Cracks in the foundation you've been laying. Your words don't just build things, they can also undo them. And the second you speak against what you've declared, even as a joke, even out of frustration, you're unraveling the inner structure, sending mixed signals to your subconscious, handing it permission to slide back to what it already knew, your old limitations. You can't afford that now, not after everything you've built. So you become a kind of guardian, a watchman over your own inner world. You get militant about your language, both what you say inwardly and out loud, not in a neurotic or controlling way, but in a way that respects the power you're now carrying. That means no leaking your vision to people who don't believe in it. No entertaining conversations that shrink you back to an older, smaller version of yourself. No passive self-put-downs disguised as jokes. You protect the word you planted the same way a skilled craftsman protects an unfinished piece. With boundaries, with focus, with silence. Because an idea handled carelessly too early rarely survives to see its finished form. The world will try to pull you back, and not always out of cruelty, sometimes even out of love. People who knew the older you will resist the new one, not because they hate you, but because your change quietly challenges everything they've assumed about themselves, and, by extension, about who they still are. And that's the moment you have to decide, do I protect the seed, or do I trade it away for approval? That's really the whole thing. Do you want confirmation from others, or do you want results? Because at this stage, you rarely get both. There will be a stretch where nobody understands what you're doing. They'll say you've changed, that you're distant now, that you think you're better than them. Let them say it. Let them misread you. You're not living for their version of your story anymore. You're living from the truth you chose for yourself. And yes, it gets lonely sometimes. Of course it does. Growth usually feels that way. But loneliness isn't emptiness. It's space. And space is exactly what your new identity needs in order to expand. So be deliberate about who you let near your vision. Be ruthless about what you take in, which voices you listen to, which ideas you keep rehearsing in your head. If it doesn't build the version of you that you're becoming, it doesn't belong in your mind anymore. You protect the seed not because it's weak, but because it's still becoming. And anything still becoming has to be shielded from whatever would rather see it stay buried. So you speak less. You listen more. You walk quietly, but with conviction. And every time doubt comes knocking, because it will, you remind yourself that you've already spoken the word, already imagined the ending, already assumed the identity. All that's left now is to guard the growth, quietly, patiently, until the world outside finally matches what you've already settled inside.